What's up, everybody? It's Dakota, and today, have you ever really wondered how you can beat all those monocolor decks in Pioneer? You know, like the ones that just seem to be dominating the format. Well, obviously, the next logical step to beating them is playing a deck that is playing literally all five colors. So that's gonna smoothly transition into the deck that we're gonna be talking about today, which is Niv to Light. Niv to Light basically is a Niv Mizzet Reborn deck, the five color 6/6 flyer that reveals the top 10 cards of your library. And for each color pair, you can choose exactly those colors from that card and put it into your hand, and the rest go into the bottom in a random order. So, what exactly does color pairs mean? Basically, just think of the 10 Ravnica guilds, and you can only get exactly those colors. So, for a quick example, before I get to the other card, you can't take Konoros and Utter End in the same pile because they are the Orzhov colors, but you could take Konoros, Euro, Hostage Taker, and Tolsmir. Siege Rhino, unfortunately, is the only card that you cannot technically get in this deck with Niv because it is three colors. And even though you could choose Golgori, Orzhov, or Selesnya with its colors, it's not exactly a two color pair, so you can't get it. But this card is really good against the aggressive decks and something you can bring to light for, which goes to the light part of Niv to light. So basically, bring to light for each color you pay into it, you can search a instant sorcery or creature with that converted mana cost and cast it without paying its mana cost. So if you spend all five colors, you can search for a creature, instant, or sorcery that costs five or less. If you pay four, four or less, so on and so forth, which gets a bunch of these like one ofs and some of these other creatures that you might want to get. Obviously, you play five, you can go get Niv Mizzet and start drawing some cards. You can go get Teferi Time or excuse me, you can't get those ones, but you can get like Abrupt Decay, Supreme Verdict, Utter End. You could even cast a cut on Cut to Ribbons if you really want to, and also the ribbons part of it can give you a little bit of reach in those later games where obviously if you just get one or two hits and with Niv Mizzet, uh, you're going to be pretty set. So obviously there's a drawback to playing five colors. You can see like the land, like 27 lands. That's like a lot of lands in this deck. But we'll kind of go over these here in a second. A way that we can easily fix our mana is these seven mana dorks, the three Paradise Druid, four Sylvan Caryatid. Caryatid obviously better than the Druid because it always has hexproof, and you'll be able to use that on the subsequent turns. Can also help you turbo out a Niv Mizzet Reborn on turn 4 and hopefully draw like 3 4 cards. That way, I'm going over some of the other creatures and things that we can find in the deck. Knoros, Hound of Aetherios, a very aggressive creature, and can also stop creature cards from entering the battlefield and players not being able to cast spells from graveyards. This specifically hits the Dredgeless Dredge decks that are being played in the format. Uh, just playing this on turn 3 on the play, and your opponent doesn't really have like a fast start, they have more like an average start, then this card not only can pressure them, but they're also forced to like take this off the table and have to wait another turn before they can get going, which means that you could really get Niv Mizzet going, drawing cards, and things like that, and just pressure them out of the game. Euro is basically a 3 mana ramp spell. Whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, you gain 3 life, draw a card, and then put a land from your hand into play. You can also escape it for double green and double blue, exiling 5 other cards, which you're just naturally going to do as the game goes along. This gives you something to do later. You can fetch it with Niv Mizzet. You can technically cast it off of Bring to Light, but obviously there's some better Bring to Light targets than Uro. But if you really just need to get something in the to get this in the graveyard and get things going and get some ramping going, this is another way that you can play Niv Mizzet a turn sooner. Hostage Taker is just a catch-all for like a creature or an artifact, and then if you get to untap with it, you get to take control of that permanent. You know, you get the chance to cast it. Siege Runner, like we said before, it's really just a bring to light target. You can't get it with Niv Mizzet, but it's also just super good against the aggressive decks. It's a way that you can stem the bleeding, stop them from really being able to get in the red zone, and then eventually just get into the red zone with Siege Rhino, and it's very hard for them to block and kill it. Tolsmere, Friend of Wolves, makes a 3/3 when it comes into play, and then you gain 3 life, and that wolf fights a creature, and that's whenever a wolf enters the battlefield. Uh, Pretty safe to say that like this probably isn't going to come up any other time other than like Tolsmere doing the work. But gaining 3 life, getting a creature off the board, and possibly still gaining keep your 3/3 around is pretty good. Can definitely stop the aggressive decks from doing what they want to do, being aggressive, and doesn't die to Fatal Push. So like the mono black decks have especially a hard time dealing with this card, or just dealing with the 3/3 body in general without dealing with it in combat. The Planeswalkers, Teferi Time Raveler shuts down the other players from really playing Bring to Light in the mirrors. It also stops like control decks from being able to interact with you. Just a super annoying card that also just lets you Bring to Light at instant speed. So being able to essentially give a Niv Mizzet pseudo haste by casting a Bring to Light on their end step is really powerful. Also a way that you can kind of start drawing more cards and like bouncing your opponent's creatures to make way for some of your other ground creatures. You can even bounce your own Niv Mizzet if you want to then just try to get more cards going, things like that. Tons of utilities. This card is very powerful, and I've continued to say how powerful it is in just about every other video it comes up, and this is no exception. Nahiri is the interesting one because you it it's not really played all that much, and it really wasn't ever played that much kind of before I saw it in this deck list. It's very good. It can exile an enchantment, tapped artifact, or tapped creature, so it's like a pseudo removal spell. For some of the other decks, like Mono Black, this is kind of bad, but like getting rid of one of their persistent creatures that they can just get back from the graveyard, it's pretty good. Discarding a card and drawing a card, really good because obviously we play a lot of lands, so you're going to have lands to discard in Nahiri to end up hopefully turning them into actual spells. And the -8, letting you search for an artifact or creature and put it onto the battlefield. Obviously, we have many good creatures, and then I believe the creature then is returned to your hand at the beginning of the next end step. So you could just like go get Niv Mizzet, give it haste, and then draw 3 or 4 cards with Niv Mizzet, get an attack with it, and then bring it back to your hand, and then you're more than likely able to cast it the next turn as well. So just a really good card, and I kind of forgot about it until obviously seeing it now, and like this card actually might be really good, and it also gives you a color pair that you can fetch with Niv Mizzet too, and then eventually just set up either future Niv Mizzets or getting one of these other cards from your deck and putting them in play. Of course, people like to ruin fun, so like playing Bring to Light to get also some of these other cards. Supreme Verdict's good in the aggro matchups. Utter End just deals with a problem permanent and permanently deals with it. Abrupt Decay just really good. Doesn't give your opponent any resources. Kills a lot of like the aggressive creatures and some of the other things that could stop you from enacting your game plan. Gets rid of Teferi Time Raveler, which can be pretty awkward with Bring to Lights and things like that. So just a really good card. Cut to Ribbons is also a removal spell that gives us some reach in the late game, where we get 1 or 2 hits in with a Niv Mizzet. Our opponent chips themselves like the 2 and 3 color decks like that people are playing. Like they can just shock themselves or deal themselves damage with some of the pain lands and things like that. Ribbons can just like reach and like kill them out of nowhere almost. So it's very very good. Oath of Kaya is essentially Lightning Helix. Randomly protects our planeswalkers and like gains us life and things like that. But mainly it's just here because it's essentially Lightning Helix, and just the random upside is pretty good, and we can get it with Niv Mizzet because we only have one other like Orzhov or 2 other Orzhov color paired cards, so pretty good. The land base looks like an absolute mess, but like as you can tell, like green and blue are definitely really important because we want to cast our Paradise Druids and Titans to try to get our ramp going. So that's why you see 4 Botanical Sanctum, 2 Breeding Pool, Blooming Marsh, Blood Crypt, Concealed Courtyard, cards that'll come into play untapped like in the early turns. Obviously Courtyard and mainly Courtyard's not the best one. Blooming Marsh is pretty good because obviously you want to be playing Paradise Druid or Sylvan Caryatid on turn 2. Fabled Passage, this plays 1 of each basic in the deck, so Fabled Passage is essentially just like one of those basic lands, and it's a way they can come into play tapped or really to fix mana, and then come and play untapped at different stages of the game to get the color that you're missing. Frontier taps for every color that's like really relevant for us. especially green blue, and the fact that it taps for red also fixes for the fact that like we can cast Niv-Mizzet on turn 5 or turn 4 depending on what our curve's like. Mana Confluence taps for any color for only having to pay 1 life. Very good, very powerful effect, especially in this deck. So the fact that this fixes our mana very nicely is also good. Nomad Outpost, just another one of the tri-lands in colors that we really care about. So we got a lot of white symbols and a lot of black symbols. So Outpost is very good. The basic plains, Stomping Ground, Temple Garden, and Temple of Plenty. More lands that just tap for green, obviously important because of Paradise Druid, someone carried it, and a Watery Grave because why not? This deck is just super weird, and really I can make an explanation for all the like the green lands because you want to probably as many green lands as you can that tap for green mana and blue mana for your ramp spells and things like that. But obviously playing 5 colors, this makes this super weird and super awkward sometimes, but like as watching people like play with this deck, it's not as awkward as you would think. Really, like the fact that a 5 color deck is so consistent as it is to just play a Niv Mizzet or find a Niv Mizzet or find Bring to Light and cast Bring to Light is pretty insane. I mean, you're basically playing like 8 copies of Niv Mizzet, and it ends up drawing like 3, 4, 5 cards. You have opponent that just drew, and I use draw in like air quotes because you're not technically drawing the cards, but like they draw 5 cards and you have a 6/6 that you have to deal with. It's not a situation that you really want to be in, just because you once you deal with the 6/6, it's like great. They're also +5 cards or +4 cards off of this Niv Mizzet, and they can either just find another one or like they just dug 10 cards deep, and if they missed on a Niv Mizzet and they're 10 cards closer to finding another one that you then also have to deal with again. Uh, so going to the sideboard after that little rant, um, basically more cards that you want to get that you can get with Niv Mizzet. Rakdos Return can just mind twist your opponent and also gives you a little bit more reach. Obviously, they have a lot harder of a time dealing with Niv Mizzet and your threats when they don't have cards in hand. Rest in Peace is just good against the graveyard decks. Infernal Reckoning deals with Ulamogs and some other colorless Eldrazi cards that I can't think of that come from the mono green deck. Very good, just stops them from being able to get them back. Thought Erasure, Detention Sphere, Campbell, another copy of Kanoros, Slaughter Games, Blood Baron, cards that are very good in like the situations where they come up. They can be cast off Bring to Light is an important thing. Can be found with Niv Mizzet when you play them. So I mean they get found by like 8 cards in the deck. So just very good and very powerful. Blood Baron good against the mono black decks. Mono white's not too much of a thing, but I mean that can come up. So Blood Baron basically just kind of shuts down, and it has lifelink to stem a lot of the bleeding. Slaughter Games can basically be good against the mirror. Take your opponent's Niv Mizzets or their Bring the Lights, whatever you want to really name with it. This card would have been really good if Nexus of Fate was still in the format. RIP. Languish and Mystical Dispute. Languish is just another card that you can find with Bring to Light. Obviously, can't find it with Niv Mizzet, but being able to bring to light for a Wrath that essentially means you have 5 copies of in your deck is still pretty good. Also, really good against the aggro decks. Mystical Dispute, really just like 1 mana counters versus like Teferis, and against like the control deck gives you a little bit of interaction, so you can resolve either your Niv Mizzet or your Bring to Light. Campbell. Really punishing against the control decks for them casting non-creature spells because it buffers your life total. Makes it harder for you to kill or harder for you to be killed. Detention Sphere, just catch all the permanents. Thought Erasure because it's just a better Thoughtseize when you're able to tutor for it with, or really get 10 looks at it with your namesake card. Whew. Was that a lot? And that definitely was a lot because this deck is crazy, insane, and how it's built and everything. And this is probably, if you're not going to play mono black, mono green, or mono red in the format, and you're also not going to play control, this is probably one of the best decks that you can be playing in the format right now. It's a heck of a lot of fun. You have a lot of cool cards that you get to tutor for that you get to find with Niv Mizzet, and who doesn't want to cast a 5-color dragon on turn 4 and just watch your opponent like read the card like 15 times and still not understand what it does. It's amazing. This deck is cool. I highly recommend it if you want to have some, if you really want to have some fun, and you also want a deck that's like pretty competitive and has different sort of ways that it plays out, where you're, like your decisions matter, but like they're not as critical as you would be if you were playing the control decks or even some of the other aggro decks. Like this is the deck that you really want to be playing because it has so many avenues to just like find your thing, play your thing, and really just get going. But that's gonna do it for me in this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you like the video and you want to see more Pioneer deck techs, please leave a like on the video. Share it, get it out to the people. This deck is sweet. Pioneer's a sweet format. Like, get more people playing it so we can have more Magic Fests and more SCG events that have Pioneer. Be sure to subscribe to my channel. I do a lot of Modern and Pioneer, getting into Standard now that we're in a new season and it looks exciting and people are super excited about it. Um, Make sure to follow my Twitch channel. I stream there occasionally now with everything going on. I don't stream nearly as much as I would like to, but we still try to go live from time to time. So make sure to follow there for some non-magic and sometimes magic related stuff. And yeah, that's going to do it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.